Plus, we got a guest waiting, and it's rude to make people wait, right? Especially somebody that doesn't deserve it, and especially someone that has so much to add to our program. And that describes our next and first guest quite well. She is vice president and legal fellow at Defending Education. Prior to joining Defending Education in her present role, she served as a senior legal fellow for the Edwin Meese III Center for Legal and Judicial Studies over at the Heritage Foundation, where her work centered on civil rights and the proper role of the courts. She's appeared all over the place. The AP, BBC, Fox News, NPR, you name it. There's a chance that Sarah Perry has appeared there. And she joins us today on the Rich Zeoli Show on 1210 WPHT. Sarah, thank you for joining us on this Friday.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to talking with you guys.
This latest report concerning DEI, I guess it shouldn't surprise anyone. It's still depressing and more than a little frustrating, considering how much the American taxpayer expends every year to subsidize not just K through 12 education, but higher education. But this new Defending Education report, which I guess looks back to 2021, it's eye-opening nonetheless. Can you tell us what your organization found?
Yeah, so we've got a crack team of investigators, and we actually went back in the wake of the George Floyd riots, and we looked specifically at President Biden's last term and where we were seeing expenditures on so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion-related scholarships, and where actually all this money was being spent. We discovered that $336 million in donations were sent to American higher education institutions across the country between 2021 and 2025. Okay, so we're taking an aggregate look at the last presidential administration, and most of this was organized through so-called Day of Giving campaign websites. Again, we're coming off the George Floyd riots. A lot of universities saw an opportunity to capitalize on sort of cultural momentum and increasing hostility over race relations. We discovered 128 colleges from 44 states, including Washington, D.C., created over 270 DEI exclusive funds. Nothing else but race essentialism to the tune of $336 million. Now, why does this matter right now? Well, we see the president trying to return to a value-neutral proposition for American education, both at the K through 12 and at the higher education level. That is, of course, the mission of Defending Education. We want a high-quality, value-neutral, politically neutral education for American students, whether it's kindergarten or graduate school. And when we see expenditures of multiple millions of dollars in programs that are eliminating participation to one race or another, that, as a civil rights attorney myself, raises alarm bells, because the first thing I hear is, well, that would seem to be a very cut and dry violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which is designed, obviously, to eliminate any discrimination on the basis of race, national origin, or ethnicity in any federally funded program, including, and specifically so, as we've seen now, in education.
Help me with this. And I know sometimes it's dangerous to try to step inside the mind of a crazy person, right? Because after a while, folks may not be able to tell the difference. But you know, speaking attorney to attorney, even though this isn't my practice area, I have heard colleagues attempt to argue that DEI is not discriminatory, and it just blows my mind. I don't understand it. I think a 1L, a first-year student at law school, should be able to see that if you are engaged in disparate treatment based upon racial identity, let's say gender identity, right?
Yeah,
that you're engaged in a form of discrimination. I mean, can you try to explain to me what the counter argument is here, if you dare?
Well, this is, once again, you got to really sort of stretch the plain text limits of the law on this, right?
Yeah, and mental gymnastics.
You got it. You got it. So we are people who adhere to textualist interpretations of statutory law. What does the black letter of the law actually say? Not what you want it to say, but what the drafters of that particular legislation would have meant the ordinary definition of the term to be, for example, in 1964, right? So obviously their goal was a colorblind America. That's incredibly laudable, and it is something to which I have been drawn my whole legal practice. I want that for every American school kid, including my 3 school kids. This is something where, from the other argument, people are arguing that equity is the same as equality, and equity is needed so that people may start from different places, but you give certain people a leg up so that the outcomes are the same. Equality is concerned with equal opportunity. Equity is concerned with equal outcomes. That means we will spend more money on you. We will advance you. We will hire you. We will promote you because of your skin color, because of your race, because of your national origin. Both the Constitution and Title VI absolutely explicitly prohibit that. In fact, when the Title VI Civil Rights Act was enacted, it was so that we could take that equal protection clause promise of the 14th Amendment that all Americans are guaranteed and granted equal protection of the laws, and we could give it legs, and we could put it into federally funded practice for any program that touched government funding or administration. That is my goal, is to return our country to a colorblind America. We have struggled, obviously, in the past. I think we're honest students of history. We recognize that there were certain very problematic periods of history. But what did the progenitors of the civil rights movement in the 1960s, who withstood hoses and dogs, want for the country if we were going to 50, 60, 70 years later, turn color blindness on its head and become color conscious? We've just seen the Supreme Court weigh in the Students for Fair Admission versus Harvard cases, in which they said eliminating race discrimination means eliminating all of it, not just some of it, but all of it and all of its manifestations. That is something we are most concerned about. And many times we can find the answers to these questions by simply following the money trail. And in this instance, it led to nearly $400 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad indictment of our times in the situation in which we find ourselves, where that kind of money is a drop in the bucket, right? That's 15 minutes a Doge, right? They can come up with that much cash. And one of the things I think was so insidious about this, and your organization's report talks about this, that many of the DEI programs that the Trump administration is trying to dismantle or catalyze them being dismantled, they're now just rebranding them, these institutions, to try to escape accountability. They're not going away. They're teaching the same things. They're just not calling it DEI anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And our organization is cataloging that as well. Where are we finding efforts to rebrand diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts? And we are literally seeing these offices go underground as fast as these directives are being issued from the White House. Now, of course, the president's agenda of eliminating race discrimination in higher education, and he is on the warpath when it comes to the reformation of education in America. We spend too much money for too little result. We spend billions of dollars, $3 trillion since 1979, when the Department of Education was organized under the Education Organization Act. $3 trillion. We've seen nothing but students get dumber, not smarter, with the increased expenditures. And for all the money that was purportedly being utilized for COVID-19 reciprocity, for educational advancement, to bring technology up to speed, to introduce non-traditional learning platforms, they failed. Not only did it fail, students like my son, who has a 504 disability plan because he has a number of various diagnoses, not only did not maintain functionality and literacy on par with grade level, he lost 2 years. I had him independently assessed. He was getting ready to transfer. We finally got to the point where we thought we got to send him to another school. Baltimore County Public Schools have failed our children. We have to send him to another school. We went to get him assessed. They said, we can't take him at grade level. We don't even think we can take him a year behind grade level. That was how COVID impacted my family directly. Billions of dollars in COVID relief funding. Our kids are dumber. Our National Association of Educational Placement scores lead us 30% literate kids in 8th grade, 20% literate kids in math in 8th grade. That's it. And now we are in the middle of the pack of developed nations in the entire world. We are being outpaced by 27 other nations. It's inexcusable. The American educational experiment has failed since government has gotten bigger. What we need to do is start cutting off some of the bloat, make college more affordable for all kids, cut some of these DEI endowments, make it race neutral, politically neutral, sex non-discriminatory, men and women given the same opportunity. I don't care what your gender identity is. Sex means sex in Title IX of the Education Amendments. And we've got to reform everything that we can from Washington. And this is going to have a trickle-down effect on higher education. But I've got 2 in college. I know exactly where this is going. I have skin in this game at all levels, and I see exactly what it looks like at the most granular level. And it starts with correctly, textually enforcing longstanding federal civil rights law as the drafters of these important pieces of legislation wanted.
And if we do that, we can start redirecting some of these funds to where they should be spent. $336 million. That's a lot of STEM education. That's a lot of help getting these kids who have COVID learning loss. And I mean, you're talking to a guy who lives in New Jersey. Thanks to Phil Murphy, our learning loss statistics are positively frightening. Some of these kids are never going to recover. It's all about priorities, folks. We talk about it all the time on this station. And that's one of my gripes with DEI. I disagree with it morally. I disagree with it intellectually. But it's also, as you see from this great report that we're sharing with you today from Defending Education, it's an example of misplaced priorities. Maybe in a world, Sarah, where every single United States kid who has the ability to do so is where they need to be in math and science and reading and writing, we can spend time on this other stuff, but we're not there. We're just simply not there, and we need to be there if we want to truly make this country as great as it can be. Again, I'm talking to Sarah Perry, everyone, Vice President of Defending Education, who, if you haven't heard of them already, you need to become acquainted with this organization because this report is fantastic. Not only does it have great information, but it does, Sarah, if I may say so, what any good advocate, any good attorney does, presents it in a way that it's easily digestible. That's what you have to do when you're in court in front of a judge or a jury. It's what you need to do when you're in the court of public opinion. We greatly appreciate you making time for us this afternoon. Can you tell us where we can find you and your organization online?
Yes, absolutely. You can go into defendinged.org. We've got a number of resources. You can start at the top. We have reports in every sector of American education. You can follow us online on X at Defending Ed, and you can follow me on X, where I pontificate regularly on law and education, at Sarah P. Perry.
And I have to talk to you sometime online about New Jersey specifically. That is a target-rich environment for someone with your skills and your organization's resources. Because if it's happening at the federal level, you can be darn sure that New Jersey is doing it to the extreme. We have a lot of problems in the Garden State. Sarah Perry, everyone, we greatly appreciate you joining us. Don't be a stranger.
Thanks so much, Mark. Appreciate it.